Good morning. My name is Andy Fairbairn of Nordic Tourism Collective, and together with my colleague Paul Wagner and our partners behind the scenes at the European Tourism Association, we'd like to welcome you here this morning to this very special webinar on sustainable tourism and sustainable tourism accommodation. We're just going to wait a few minutes for everyone to join, at which point I'll probably repeat what I've just said, and then we'll get underway. Right, it's 9 o'clock in London and it's 10 o'clock in Sweden. So good morning. My name is Andy Fairbairn of the Nordic Tourism Collective, and together with my colleague Paul Wagner and with our partners as well behind the scenes, the European Tourism Association, we'd like to welcome you here this morning to this very special webinar on sustainable tourism and sustainable tourism accommodation. What we'll be looking at today are examples of sustainable accommodation across the Nordics. The Nordics has always been a beacon for sustainability and sustainable tourism, and still continues to this very day. And it still leads the way in many ways. So this morning, with sustainability as such an important factor in everyone's traveling choice these days, increasingly with the consumer, we'll be looking at some very special examples that showcase the different types of sustainable accommodation across the Nordic region. So good morning, and Paul, if you'd like to maybe perhaps introduce everybody.
Yeah, good morning. We've got a fabulous panel with us this morning. We have three fabulous examples of sustainable tourism in the Nordic region. And first, I'd like to say hello to Sam Ratziker-Nissen, who's the General Manager of Comfort Hotel Solna in Stockholm. Good morning, Sam. Also like to say good morning to Rolf Arnelier, the CEO of Villepust in Norway. Good morning, Rolf. And also to Sylvia Adams, founder and owner of Amazing Nature Scandinavia in Sweden. Good morning, Sylvia. What a great panel we have lined up for you. So, Andy, should we get underway?
Yeah, I think we might as well start. We may be joined by one other. We'll see. I think he may be held up, but if he joins us, we'll just welcome him in as and when he appears. So, yeah, Paul, over to you.
So, first of all, Sam, if you could start loading up and sharing your presentation. We're going to hear and see a really phenomenal product, part of the Nordic Choice Hotel Group. Sam, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me. I just want to test the audio. Can you guys hear me well before I start?
Oh, good.
Oh, good. Okay, then here we go. Well, thank you again for having me. My name is Sam. I'm 33 years old, originally from Holland, and now living in Sweden. And I want to spend the next 5 to 7 minutes to talk about House of Choice. But I think before I go in there, a little bit about the company globally, and then we'll dive right into what House of Choice is exactly and how it is I think, a very exciting property in terms of sustainability. But let's start with the chain that I operate in, and that is Nordic Choice Hotels. We have over 220 hotels, which is primarily in the Nordics. And we operate with a very diversified brand portfolio. We believe that every guest is unique and every guest has their different needs. So we operate with the global brands that you might recognize, Quality, Clarion Collection, and Comfort. And then we have some independently branded hotels as well. So I work for a brand that's called Comfort. And the main thing that we want is Comfort is our guests to have a very easy experience, easy on the wallet, easy to enjoy, but most importantly, easy on the planet. So that brings us into House of Choice. I'm going to zoom in here to the Stockholm area where the building is located. This is what House of Choice looked like. It's a building that was built up in 2021. So we opened the hotel in the midst of the pandemic. So we didn't have a fabulous, spectacular opening. It was all budget. But the thing that we did not budget on, that was the sustainability and the fact that this was Scandinavia's first zero energy hotel. So our vision for Comfort Solna, which is part of House of Choice, is to be the most sustainable hotel in the Nordics. And I think we have the right tools in order to reach that vision in 5 or 10 years, because we are Scandinavia's first zero energy hotel. Now, what that means is that on a yearly basis, we produce more energy than we consume. This means during the winter months, we have to buy in a bit more regular energy. As some of you might know, we don't get a lot of sunshine in the winter here. But during the summer, we produce, or we generate so much solar power that we can actually sell it to energy companies. And this is the only time of year where we look forward to getting our energy bills, as we often get money back. Now, I'll jump back here because I just want to show the building here. You see everything that is sort of black and integrated to the front and to the roof of the building. All of those are solar panels. We have 499 kilowatt of solar panels, making it the world's most densely packed solar powered hotel. Like, we couldn't fit any more solar panels. So it's very exciting. I think they did it very nice how they integrated it to the building. I'll just hop down here. So House of Choice is actually 3 different parts within the same building. We have Comfort Solna, which is what I am responsible for, 336 hotel rooms. We also have 88 apartments that we can sell for long stay. I'm actually sitting in one of the apartments right now. And we also have the Swedish head office for Nordic Choice hotels in the same building. So it's a mix of both office space, hotels, and apartments, all with their different sort of energy needs. Now, how does it work, zero energy? Like I said, we generate most of our energy from the roof. About 75% of the solar power is coming from the roof, and it's in total 499 kilowatt of solar panels. This is probably Scandinavia's most sustainable roof terrace also. You won't find any drinks or any fancy bars, but you'll find a lot of solar panels. You almost can't walk between there. So it's a very exciting project. We've received several awards from both the local, I guess, government entities, Solna Stad in the most sustainable building. We've received awards within Choice of being very high in sustainability. So we're very proud and to operate in such a way. But on one hand, you generate power, but that is not enough in order to reach the zero energy concept. When the building was made and when we designed it, we also made sure that it's designed in the most efficient way possible. So, for example, the heat that's generated in our kitchen is sent up to the rooms to keep them nice and warm. All of our windows are optimized in such a way so they let just enough sunlight in, meaning empty rooms need no heating. And 70% of the material in our house, in the entire house, is made from recycled materials. And a fun fact about our elevator also is that every time our elevator goes down, it generates enough energy to send them back up again. So essentially, we also have zero energy elevators. So it's a lot of exciting solutions. But I think if we really want to reach our vision of Scandinavia's most sustainable hotel, the last and most important part is how we operate the hotel on a day-to-day basis. And I think using comfort as a brand, first of all, it matches the sustainability aspect very well, because we like to give our guests what they need and skip the unnecessary. That means in our hotel rooms, you find everything you need for a great hotel experience, but getting rid of all the excessive, meaning no power-hungry fridges or no excessive lighting. We stick to the basics to use the energy in the smartest way possible. We also have quite smart digital solutions in place, such as live temperature tracking. And with this, we can easily see which rooms take a lot of energy to heat up or which rooms take very little energy. And when we do our room allocation to guests, then we take that into consideration. So we pick the rooms that take little energy first. We also have a lot of sustainable partners, not necessarily towards the energy side, but also how we as a hotel operate. We're working together with a project called Food Loops, where we use part of our food waste and convert it into compost. That compost is then sent to a local partner, which has a very big plot of land, where we grow our own vegetables, meaning that our food waste is used as compost for new vegetables, which we can use again, meaning essentially we can use food waste to create new vegetables, which is very exciting, I think. We also work together with a company that's called Too Good To Go. It's a company that's similar as Karma, which is, I think, maybe a bit more known internationally. And it basically is a platform where you can sell the food that you've left over, let's say from the breakfast, or food that's lunches in our deli fridge might go bad. We can put them out there for a very cheap price, and then guests can come in and take it in order to minimize food waste even more. And Nordic Choice as a standard also has no chemicals whatsoever when we clean the rooms. We use something that is called ultra clean water. It goes through a filter, and that is strong enough, the water is strong enough to clean with and give it a nice and fresh well without using any sort of red chemicals. So yeah, that was quickly about House of Choice, and I want to leave you today with, I guess, 3 energy saving tips, which I've learned at hotels, which maybe can also be used in your own home. If you want to save some energy, I know that prices are still a bit high in some instances. So I want to leave you with 3 sustainable tips. The first one is dare to lower the temperature in the hotel or in the building. I think even with lowering it with just 1 degree, you can save up to 10 to 15% of your energy bill. The second tip is, this is mostly for hotels though, change the filters in the ventilation systems. This one does require a small investment, but with clean filters, your generator has to work a lot less to keep the rooms nice and warm. And the last tip is give your radiators some room to breathe. If tables or chairs are placed too close to these heating sources, they lose a lot of its heating effect. So go over your hotel or maybe even in your home and adjust if needed. Yeah, and I think that's all for me. Thank you very much for listening. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions, and if you're ever in Stockholm or Solna, I would I'd love to show you around. So thank you for listening. I'm gonna stop sharing here.
Super, thanks, Sam. Thank you, Andy. You got a couple of questions. You're on mute there.
Sorry, mate. Wow, fantastic start. Thank you very much, Sam. Great sort of model for where we should be going in the future, and I know we're going to see some other examples in a while, but that's an inspiring start. Just a question, I mean, is this something you're hoping to eventually sort of roll out into Nordic Choice, or is it just purely like an experiment at the moment?
Well, this was definitely the first sort of project, but I actually had a chat with the chief property officer the other day, and he said, "Why don't we do this with every building? You know, energy cost is a hot item, and this is hopefully the future for the buildings. But we also need a property owner that is as passionate about sustainability, who's willing to invest in these solutions." So I think it's a continuing dialogue between the property owner and the tenant, but I can definitely see it as a positive trend. I mean, if we could do it here in Sweden with this little sunlight, I think we can do it hopefully everywhere where it's a bit more sunny.
Fantastic. And I think one final other question I would have, and I'm sure that just as a general point, if anyone watching has got any questions, just post your questions in the chat and we'll try and get around to them during the course of the webinar. But my question is that there must be a huge amount of investment required to get to something which is zero emission. So I guess it's balancing the sort of long-term investments against the long-term benefits, I guess. And I guess some of the properties would be saying, well, actually, I can't afford to do that because there's a lot of investment required. I mean, how do you what arguments do you use? Do you just say this is something we should do, or is there a sort of more, well, what's the period of investment that you'll be looking at to do this?
That's a very good question. I mean, when the property owner makes this sort of building, they of course make a rental agreement that is, I think it is 20 years that we have as a tenant. So it's definitely a long-term investment, and of course the rent goes up because you're paying for a premium product. There's no secret there, but there's also ways for us as a hotel to get it back with lower energy cost if you look from a cost benefit perspective. And it is a unique selling point. It becomes very interesting for both the corporate market, but also the individual travelers. Just as example, we have Vattenfall, which is a very big corporate client. When they sign an agreement, they have a separate sustainability, sustainability demands, which makes us a preferred partner, because the impact of them staying with us is a lot less versus a regular hotel. And I know that recently on Booking.com, they've added this sustainable rating where you can get 1, 2, or 3 sort of green flowers as sort of front in the list of Booking.com. So it becomes more visible there also. So from an individual traveler, it also becomes more and more important. So we see both trends and both positive. So it is an investment, and it will take time to get that back. But on the long term, I think it's a good decision, definitely.
And I guess as making it easy for the consumer is the key. The easier it is, then the more they will seek these types of products out. That's fantastic, Paul. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sam. Fascinating. It's great to see such an example in a city and around a major city in Europe. So I think it's one that we'll be talking about in many years' time, as this was the very first one in a major city. Thanks very much, Sam. Now we're going to move on to Rolf in Norway, who's got a very different and fascinating product to share with us. Rolf, if you could share your screen, that would be wonderful.
Definitely. All right, let's see. Can you all hear me and see the presentation here?
All Great. Good, Rolf. All good.
Yeah. So I'm Rolf. I'm the CEO and founder of Hvilepust. It's a Norwegian word which translates into rest and exhale. So we're also talking about sustainability here, on more of quality of life in this sort of experience that we're designing. So our tagline is "Exhale with nature as you spend an unforgettable night in a glass igloo in Norway." And this is just to set the mood. It's one of the locations, and we today have 6 locations spread out on 4 municipalities in close proximity to Oslo and Gardermoen. They are, 3 of them are available by public transportation, so guests can also arrive at Gardermoen and Oslo and get there without having a car, which also has been important for me strategically when choosing locations, that you have both availability by car but also by public transport. And I think that's actually my next slide. So 90 minutes. I also have been, to say a little bit about the brand itself, chosen to do something close to Oslo, because when you get far north in Norway, there's a lot of unique accommodations where you can of course see the Northern Light. But yesterday you also had the Northern Light, which appeared in the Oslo area. And so you can get that here as well, but it's mainly just to also showcase some of the beautiful nature that we have in the southeastern part of Norway, which I think has been a little bit, it hasn't gotten the attention that it should. So that's partly why I choose to have everything close to Oslo for now, and then we'll see what happens when we're getting to an expansion later. There are, also looking at 3 different experiences, because I see people are looking at either being intimate with the forest, the tree huggers, Some people want to have the panoramic views, and some people, of course, want to be by the waterfront. So this is one location which is by the water, and you can jump right in and get your morning swim. Here's for the tree huggers, for those who want to have the intimacy with the forest. And here you have something which is more with the view. There's a 360-degree transparency so that you can have a peerless experience in and with nature. So it's still the comfort of a hotel room, but it's in nature. And it's actually designed as a fireplace living room when you arrive, and then it easily transforms into a bedroom just by unfolding the daybed, and then it can sleep up to 4 people in one igloo. Oh, why can I not get, there we are. Yeah, so this is maybe more concrete regarding the sustainability aspect. So the igloos are installed on poles, then it leaving air underneath, and thus leave minimal footprint on nature. So if you ever want to move them, then nature will be back to its original form in a year or so. The materials the igloos are built from are recyclable. So we Arla Plast in Sweden is one of the distributors of the actual plates that the igloo is built from, and they are certified for quality, environment, and working environment in accordance with the different ISO certificates. And as mentioned, also half of the locations are available by public transportation. So that's also an important part, and have a goal now to set up a partnership with airport car rental that have electrical cars for international guests. When it comes to the products and materials in the interior, we try as far as possible to go with sustainable material, but it's also one of the big questions because it's not possible for us yet to choose 100% sustainable material. Then it's too expensive for a startup like we are right now. There's no water or electricity in the igloo. So we do provide the guests with drinking water from a 5-liter can, and there's a wood stove. So you gotta use wood to heat up the igloo. And we do use solar panel driven lamps to get the lighting set. Very romantic, very romantic. Yeah. I think also our mission is part of the whole kind of sustainability aspect, and it's core to what we're trying to do and is doing right now. So it says with minimal footprint on nature and maximum impression on the soul, we're contributing to better mental health by allowing people to lower their shoulders and be in one with nature. So all in all, we're trying here to create a sustainable and unique back to nature experience with luxurious facilities. And just some more photos, and that would be all from me. Thank you. And of course, if you have any questions, or if you would like to have a chat regarding collaboration or whatever, then feel free to get in touch.
Super, thank you, Rolf. Excellent presentation and some beautiful photos of your product. Just one thing that struck me, most of the guests that stay with you now, do they tend to sort of stay for one night on a sort of tour of the country, or do they come for one night from local destinations, maybe from Oslo, for example, and spend a night there? Or do you ever get people wanting to spend more than one overnight with you? What's the sort of general feeling of the guests that you're attracting? Yeah, the majority of our guests are from the bigger urban cities in the eastern part of Norway, so Oslo, Drammen, Tønsberg, like those cities, and they come to spend either one night or 2 nights. There are some travelers now coming in who's doing it as a stopover from Oslo and then go further to Flåm, Hardanger, or Bergen. So it's on its way.
for the international travelers who are, you know, having that kind of routes, the typical, you know, routes that you will have in Norway.
Perfect, thank you. Andy, anything you wanted to add on that one?
No, I don't think so. I mean, having just come back from Norway at the end of last year and up in the fjords and actually looking out over the sort of the beautiful landscape, it's sometimes a bit of a sort of a dichotomy, if you like, or a clash between the idea of being in this incredible sort of nature environment, and then suddenly find yourself in a hotel where the heating's cranked up too hot and all the rest of it. So to have something like what you're providing, which is really in immersion, if you like, in nature, is actually really something really quite unique. And I think it's a fantastic product. And I think more and more people are seeking this sort of escape and this back to nature experience. And it's something that we're seeing as a trend, not only in the Nordics, but also certainly here in the UK and further afield as well. So I think it's brilliant. That's very, very good indeed. So, I mean, shall we move on? I mean, I think if anyone else has got any questions, Paul, I think we've got a few questions which we're going to ask at the end, which is probably more general to everybody, I suppose. But Sylvia, so I think we could move on to you. You've got a range of stuff which you are selling, and it's quite a sort of variety. It's quite an eclectic mix of accommodation. So perhaps Sylvia, you could introduce yourself and perhaps tell us a little about Amazing Nature Scandinavia and really what you're all about.
Yeah, hi, I'm called Sylvia Adams. I run Amazing Nature Scandinavia. So I'm an incoming tour operator for Sweden, and I work B2B as well as B2C. I make bespoke travel itineraries for European FITs with an average travel duration of about 10 to 21 days. I try to limit the area as much as possible to make it as sustainable as possible. At the end of last year, I achieved the Travel Life Certified Award, so I can call myself a sustainable tour operator. The tours have a focus on nature, culture, and wildlife, and I mostly offer off the beaten track experiences, accommodations, as well as activities, sometimes with a stay in one of the bigger cities of Sweden, where I work with Nordic Choice Hotels. So this is one of the examples. It's called Hotel Sommarhagen. It's situated in central Sweden. It is a hotel with 16 rooms divided over 2 different buildings. You have to go there for personal attention. So the hosts are very hospitable, locally sourced food from the environment. It's off the beaten track, and they have for about 250 kilometer mapped hiking trails and 350 kilometer mapped cycling trails, which they mapped out themselves. So they have 2 glass houses in the forest, 1 floating hotel room and 1 floating cabin with sauna. So you start the first night at the hotel where you enjoy 2-course dinner. Then the day after you go to one of the other accommodations, and the 3rd night you spend at the hotel again. And on your hike to the glass house or the floating cabin, they give you a map of one of the hiking trails, but they make sure you don't run into other customers along the way. So every customer gets another hiking trail for the day. The second example is Kolarbyn Eco Lodge. There are charcoal huts, which are remnants from the time that charcoal was made. There are about 7 huts, I think, and other possibilities to sleep cabins as well. So there is no electricity, no running water. You have to chop your wood yourself for your fireplace in your cabin. And yeah, as a sustainable tour operator, I have to give preference to working with sustainable accommodations. So I offer everything from farm stays, organic farms, hotels, forest huts, cozy B&Bs, and charming holiday homes. And those mixed with, of course, sustainable activities. That was a very short picture presentation.
Fantastic, Sylvia, and I think you really showcased all the different types of potential nature accommodation, sustainable accommodations, and I think the floating idea is opening another whole possibilities of potential in lakes across the Nordics, in fjords across the Nordics, whatever. So really, really exciting stuff there. And I noticed that you really tailor-made all your products. So it's one is the accommodation, but two is the activities they do behind it. So it's always to produce a sustainable holiday. What I think really interested many people was the duration of the holidays. I mean, up to 21 days shows to us that people are looking for this to be in their main holiday, rather than in the old days taking a couple of flights to city breaks. They're deciding to take one trip, either driving or training or possibly flying up to Sweden, and to experience sustainability as their main holiday. And I think that's you're a great example of what maybe the future, maybe some of the younger generation are starting to look for when it comes to sustainable holidays. So thank you very much for that. Andy, anything you want to add? Oh, you're muted.
No, I think there's lots of questions which are where I would ask to Sylvia, where I'd also ask to Rolf, and also ask to Sam. So I'm keeping all my questions. I'm writing a big long list of questions. There's a couple of questions come in on the chat as well, which I think we'll ask at the end. I mean, I think the idea of linking the activities to the accommodation is interesting, and that's a question I would probably ask to Rolf as well later. And whether it's a particular type of traveler, which is interesting, which is something perhaps we can investigate a little bit a little later on at the end. So that's we'll keep all these questions, because I think they're all a similar question to everybody, really. Just a practical question, which I'm going to ask Rolf and I'm going to ask Sylvia now. And please excuse me for asking this question, but we did have a question in the chat saying, where's the toilet, Rolf, in Hillvillipus, and what's the deal there then? And I guess the same applies to you, Sylvia, with your eco lodges on the end of a lake. Practical questions, I know, but people are asking it. So what's the answer?
Yeah, it's a question that I often get. And you know, we have a traditional concept in Norway called utedo. It is let's say a very fancy festival toilet, but not fancy. It's built in wood, so it feels kind of classy, but it's also airy. It's very natural. It is a separate house with a heart in the door, so you can sit there and enjoy your whatever you need to do, and that's it. Yeah. So
there is a separate facility for those who want that, or for those who need.
Yeah, it's like a 20-30 meters away from the igloo, so you know, it's separate like that. And yeah, that's part of the, I would say, part of the camping in the glamping. You know, it's a glamorous camping concept, and you get a lot of glamour. The camping here is the actual house toilet.
I had to ask the question. Apologies, Rolf, and it was something which came up a few times in the and I guess the same applies to you, Sylvia. I guess in your cabin there's a facility somewhere, and so let's not dwell on that.
Okay.
Let's move on. Paul, we've been joined by someone else.
Yeah, we're delighted to join by Ivalo Lefterov, who's the hotel development director for an incredible futuristic project called Svart. And Ivalo, if you could just share your screen, and we'll pass it over, just checking it's all working. There we go. There we go. And over to you, Ivalo. Nice to see you. Just on mute to Ivalo, so if you could just unmute, that would be great.
There we go. That will be helpful. Hi, everyone. So I'm just, hold on a minute. Yeah, so thank you for having me, and sort of being a bit late. Well, yes, I'm gonna share a little bit more information on Svart, although I'm pretty sure many of you have been familiar. It's been in the media quite often lately in the last couple of years. And the project has its ups and downs, and anything that you're trying to be a little bit more innovative, I guess, or trying to fit all these different sustainability requirements and ambitions and pillars that we put ourselves into. As a start, as I said, the project, as some of you might know, is actually just south of Bodø on the Svartisen Glacier. For the Norwegians, that will be a familiar area, and where exactly that is, I presume. It's the project started about 2017. As I said, we had our turbulent periods of COVID and everything else to deal with during the development process, which reflected on multiple refinancing and financing of the project, etc. But we are finally on track. And what's exciting about the project is the very personal vision story that we had basically when the founder of the project started. The idea for Svart was really about how we can design and produce a building in general as to be completely off-grid and fully self-sustaining and energy positive. So we started cogitating with that idea and play around with all the different options that we had. And the design was really driven by those goals, as predominantly, especially the shape. The location itself, as I said, very personal story as a point of a family trip of the founder who fell in love with the site, and that was a particular location that was already assigned for hotel development, although it's been a bit of a brownfield for a while. It's part of an existing farm in the location. And we started talking with the municipality. The then owner came to us with the possibility of us coming together and designing something that's truly spectacular for the area, which is why we went to Snoeter as one of the leading concept development architects globally for some spectacular designs, and really work a couple of years very hard with them to really focus on the pillars of the building, which is, as you can see here, it's pretty much mostly driven by technology, innovation, sustainability, but also wellness and education with community outreach. And the goal of the design particularly was how we can harvest the most solar, the most energy, so the building can be fully self-sustaining and energy positive, which is what derived the shape of the building and everything. The roof structure itself, it's designed in a way that each panel is positioned to optimize the best capture of sunlight. And so the concept really is to look into a full 360 sustainability approach. It's not a holistic approach. It's not just to have a water recycling or food waste or energy saving. It's more about putting all the elements together. And with a lot of the aspects of it, it's been challenging, but equally interesting to see what is already existing and what is new. And it's quite fascinating to see how much of all this technology, both from previous periods and or new ones, already exist in methodologies of building, including the prefabricated structure of the building that we're already doing, by integrating on the foundations now with a zero carbon concrete floating concrete devices to minimize the seabed impact, as well as the solar panels, and then linking all these three recycling elements, three circular elements, into creating the best possible option of minimizing waste, creating a minimum energy exposure from the building, being a passive building structure, but also utilizing solar for the operation of these. In addition to that, what we have already done, we're doing as well, is integrating something that I want to focus to talk a little bit more, because the rest of it is very standard when it comes to what is there now into the building industry and what one can do about recycling, reducing energy and waste and energy waste. But it's more about the capture of carbon neutrality, capture of carbon, and how we can reuse it in the right way towards the operation of the building, but more importantly, to create a certain level of credits, where I like to call it a guilt-free travel for our visitors, by being able to offset locally all of their carbon outputs by coming and arriving to us. And what we have done is we've created with our sister company, or currently creating and developing a technology which is based on a portable data center units, whereby we're creating multiple revenue streams, but also abilities to capture all the heat waste from the computing efforts itself, whereby that computing energy is being captured and reversed back into electricity in order to recycle all of our, decompose all of our organic waste, to then be, as was talked earlier, about producing byproducts for various different green farms and our own products that we're growing within the product itself. Svart itself is having 4 F&B outlets, or will be having 4 F&B outlets. And the idea really is, by having those technologies, those full circle, is to completely be carbon neutral and be able to offset everything, the entire journey of our guests through the operation of the hotel, to become a fully carbon neutral experience. And it's a topic that hasn't been touched too much on the hospitality angle, at least, but it's a huge topic for us. Everybody who works in hotels know food waste is a massive issue that we have to tackle, but as well as heat and everything that it's happening in the hotels, especially from facilities such as wellness facilities, as well as F&B facilities, etc. And the idea is to have sensors and ways in which to capture all that residual heat and carbon and convert it back into the energy for the operation of the hotel and the offsetting of every elements. So by having these data centers, there's a couple of different things that one creates as far as not only computing real estate, i.e. Additional revenue, which is something major to any hotel operators, is we need to optimize our revenue streams in a ways that, you know, they're outside of the conventional way of thinking. That's one way, by providing a computing data area in the so-called dead spaces within the hotel zones. And everything that is within the hotel will be in a local 5G network, which again, we capture and control the way in which we compute. Anything email streaming, us having a Zoom call at the moment, is somewhere offset in a data center facility, God knows who knows where, and a lot of the heat is being just reduced in the atmosphere. Where what we are wanting to do is to capture that locally within the hotel and be able to utilize that waste into energy back in for the operation of the hotel and the food recycling, etc. On second is the creditor, as I said. So there's multiple opportunities into that, but then we need to be able to also convey that, because I think part of the topic is, and some of the questions I've seen earlier that we discussed or to be discussed, is all linked to how travelers want to do it, and is there enough travelers who want to do sustainable travel? And the issue here is that, in my mind, yes, it's a very trendy now, everybody wanting to do a sustainable travel, and everybody wants to be part of it in some way or another. But by recent studies is, yes, 80% of people want to do sustainable travel, but only 65% of them know what exactly sustainable travel means. So it's really down to education, and it's to be able to create a journeys that is to educate the consumer, doesn't matter their background, as to how in which they can become more sustainable themselves. And by experiencing a truly sustainable stay with us, is to create an opportunity whereby we can continue having an ongoing coaching, and they can hopefully take the experience with us and apply some of those elements to their day-to-day life. For that idea, we're actually developing, have developed a product, what we call Svart Touch. And this is essentially a wearable technology by which we will be able to monitor various different vials and sensors from our clients and guest experiences, in order to bespokely and holistically create their overall stay from a point of view of their locations in their rooms, lighting, sound, experience, touch, feel, but as well as anything to do with foods, as well as we're designing bespoke menus based on their nutritional requirements, i.e. if they want to go climbing and they're exhausted, or they're going a very relaxed day. So basically we'll be able to identify the various different requirements from a food perspective, and to provide them a menu that is very bespoke designed for each one of those guests. We call it, we kind of stage it in a 3 systems program, which is climatize, condition, and evolve. The idea again is if we have guests coming, let's say from a Southeast Asia, which they're not used to the cold of northern Norway, we need to climatize them to get into the right body condition in order and mental condition to experience the best way the hotel and the area surrounded, especially the fjords area and the glacier itself. And that will then comes to conditioning, and the evolve is really the idea where we can continue educating the people on how to be sustainable. The goal with that is to really provide an opportunity by the time they check out, we can actually allow them to measure and to see with the small tweaks that we've done on the lighting, on the heating, on the various different other aspects of their stay, including food, etc., of how they can apply those in the day-to-day life, and by simply becoming more sustainable. The goal really is for that is to by people being more sustainable themselves, the less usage and waste they're going to create, and everything else goes more sustainable. So it has a huge educational element to the process of how people are staying with us. And as I said, really the one of the big things for the hotel and for us is educating the consumer and the local community. We have really close touch with the local community and the nature that we're working with, and the guests, because that is the only way that we personally believe we can achieve in a more larger scale sustainability. It's not simply just a singular hotel unit or business that's going to do it. We need to create a demand, and the demand, if there's no demand, there's no point of developing such products. And hence the reasons of us joining forces with Six Senses as of last year. For one of better terms, there's plenty of other wonderful hotel groups obviously in the world, but when it comes to their ethos and their core ambitions, it's very much aligned with ours. So therefore it was a very natural way for us to come together and create these two aspects. We're also creating a product. Six Senses already have what they call Six Senses Earth Lab. Then this is all about nature and educating preservation of food production and etc. But with us, we're creating something what we call Smart Lab. And this is a place where we can showcase different technologies on innovation when it comes to anything sustainable, from food production to materials to experiences. And it's really an interactive space for the guests to be in touch with the building, to be in touch with the whole space, and in touch with sustainability in general. And I do hate the word sustainability, I must say. It's been overused. But for one of lack of others, we need to be better into what we're doing and respect nature. And that's the one way of looking at the hotel being really done for us.
Ivala, can I just interrupt you there, because you've got some fantastic points here, and I'm a bit conscious of the time that we're but we need to get some questions to you as well.
So yeah.
Yeah, just to get some questions off to you as well, because obviously it's one of the most innovative projects that we've seen in the region, maybe in Europe actually. So and of course one question that comes up, which I know is always a difficult one to put you on the spot a little bit, but one question, if you could stop sharing for a second, is any idea when you might be able to open up the hotel? There's so much noise and buzz about the incredible project. Is there any sort of sign of a date?
Well, I know we've been pushing a few times the deadline for a few obvious reasons, COVID being ones, but we're anticipating Q1 of 25. Again, I don't want to be held 100% to that, but that's the end goal for us. We've been working hard onto getting that particular timeline, more or less, to stick with that timeline for us.
Super. And now we're just opening up a couple of questions here. Maybe Ivala, we start with you on this one. Your specific traveler target types. What is your thoughts behind it? Because obviously there's so many different segments that will be attracted to such a exciting project and product. What are your target types that you're looking towards?
I mean, obviously, being part of Six Senses, there's already a particular target group that it's dedicated to that particular segment of the hotel market, but also anyone who is keen on nature preservation, experiences and wellness, and that's really the key here. And the price bracket is probably higher than going to glamping, for example, which is different. There's nothing wrong with either. They can work quite nicely together, and I think that's part of our long-term mission, is to be accommodating to various different segments within the market. But wellness and nature adventure is our key target market.
Super, thank you. Maybe Sam, I could come back to you, being in the one representing the cities with your product. Presumably, you're not just looking for the leisure traveler that wants to enjoy a sustainable city break, for example, but also maybe the corporate market.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I think the corporate market gets more and more strict when it comes to traveling. We see a trend where they eliminate the more 1 to 2 travel days and maybe stay 3 or 4 days. So it's often longer length of stay, but also higher demands on sustainability and on the impact. So the fact that we are zero energy hotel here in Solna, that really gives us a sort of a competitive advantage, because we can really show, now that we've been open for 2 years, we can show that, okay, this is our emissions, this is how much energy we have produced, and this is the impact that one room night will have versus the average hotel in, let's say, Stockholm. And you could see it's maybe 25% versus a regular stay. So having that as an argument is very interesting for the corporate market, while still having, you know, a great hotel experience. It's not like we have to compromise with anything versus a normal hotel. So yeah, we do see a trend with corporate travelers, mostly from the one that makes the agreements and sort of steers their corporate clients towards a specific hotel. So it's interesting how it develops.
Absolutely, excellent. And Rolf, can we ask you, with your product, presumably mostly leisure travelers thus far, but are you also looking to develop for businesses that want to you know, create a special experience for their workforce?
Yeah, definitely. You're right. It's been up until now, you know, it's mostly been urban millennials, I would say, who would be the major target group. But we just recently kind of launched a possibility for private public sector to come out and stay with igloos, in the igloos. But then we also have a farmhouse where you can then do your traditional seminar with a projector and stuff like that. So we're testing this out with the first B2B client in March, and then let's see, you know, that's going to be a nice little pilot where we're having close dialogue with them to see, you know, what can we do to do this even better, to you know, but we're moving in that direction as well.
Great to hear that, and yeah, covering all the segments, and I think that's vital for the sort of year-round potential occupancy for the products. That's great to hear. Sylvia, I wanted to ask you, you're obviously having international guests already to your region in Sweden. Which markets are you generally focusing on? And I presume they want to drive or take the train generally to come to the destination. So where are your clients coming from?
It's mostly European travelers. Most of them come by car. I would say couples, families, and they're looking for 3 main things. They want to experience nature, they want to escape the rat race, and they are really looking for immersion.
Absolutely, immersion. I think that's key for it. Summed up very well there. Evola, kind of moving to you, just getting through a few questions now, is do you see more travelers seeking sustainable projects like this? Is there a real demand coming through via Sixth Senses or through your project itself? Can you really see that it's beginning to ramp up in terms of demand for sustainable accommodation and products like yourself?
I mean, absolutely. And I think Sixth Senses alone or aside, on a daily basis, we get about 100 emails just for people demanding different bookings, but more specifically asking for the various different sustainable aspects of the project and being able to offset their abilities, and even been having quite a lot of conversations recently with different tour operators more into the high-end market, but I think that will slowly move down to the more mass market, is to do with linking the hotel with fully electrical boats, or even in conversation now with electrical plane producing. So it's really about having that journey, almost the demand from their clients as to they want to travel only for a longer period of time, but only if every aspect of their travel is linked to fully sustainable or way in which be electric or different way of means of transport, whether it's train or if it's a plane, a reduction of usage or hours of flying, etc. So there is a lot of demand on that matter. Yeah,
I think that's a common thread with everybody here today, that it's the whole experience, not just the hotels or the accommodation itself. It's the whole experience when you're traveling to stay in your products, is that you have the experience and the sustainability activities or with it immersed in it as well. So that's really interesting. Andy, over to you for a few last general questions.
Well, no, I was intrigued by Ivalo's two comments. One was the notion of guilt-free travel, which you use on your slide, which I think is quite interesting. I've not heard that before, but actually that's exactly what it is in lots of ways. And I think travel and tourism generally gets hit with a very big stick sometimes, as being the sort of the spoiler, and it's the big evil brother. But in fact, you know, the examples we've seen here today is actually tourism can be a force for good, and tourism can be actually a positive thing. And also the fact of, you know, sustainability is also an overused word in lots of ways, and it's a word that you don't like, and it's a word that I don't particularly like either, because it means so many different things to so many different people. And it's really sort of, we're looking at accommodation, we're looking at emissions, we're looking at engaging with local communities. It's the whole thing. It's how do you, and I know that Sam, in Nordic Choice, you've got gender balance in your staff, and you've got equality and all that, and that's all parts of sustainable tourism, which is really interesting. I guess that my general question is really, it's great having these products and this direction in the Nordics is moving. Is there, do we see the demand? Is the consumer willing to do this? Is that something we anecdotally see reports by various research groups saying, yes, the consumers want more and more consumable sustainable products. Obviously that's clearly is happening, but is it, how quickly do you think this is going to happen? Because I think there's a danger that many people say, oh well, it's expensive, and then I won't do that because it's more expensive than taking a normal holiday. I mean, how would I mean, Rolf, how would you counter that sort of argument, for example?
Can you ask the questions with a few
a lot of people would say, yeah, it looks great, but I can't afford it and I'm not willing to spend the money to do that. I'll stay in a normal hotel as well. Is there an argument that you trot out and say, well, actually that might be the case, but what's the it's something that I hear a lot, certainly in the UK, is, yeah, I want to do that, but actually it looks expensive to me.
Yeah, and you do pay for an experience, which I don't really compare it to staying at a hotel, because you do go out into nature and be in one with nature. And as I mentioned, the mission with Hvilepust is that you actually get to lower your shoulders and, you know, get that to shut off from your daily rat race or whatever. I think it's a demand, and it's just increasing, even with, you know, increased rates on food and whatever. Then I've been a little bit, you know, I've been hesitant and been watching this quite closely the last few months because of the interests that have been raising and the prices that have been raising. But it seems to just be more and more people demanding to, or requesting to, get out and just be with their partner, their family, and want to use the nature, you know, be active in nature. So for now, I don't have statistics, but it is what I can see from, you know, the activity on how many bookings and how many requests that we do get.
I think, Ivalo, I think your point was it's about education. It's about telling people these products exist and really the reasons why they should be looking at this, because this is the way, and it's educating everybody out there that actually there are sustainable alternatives, and it's a way of engaging with nature. It's also, interestingly, sustainability and wellness going together, and I think that's a good combination as well. And lowering your shoulders, I think, is such a great phrase. Because that's really what it's about. It's about really sort of going back and getting off grid and actually really sort of enjoying nature and the environment for what it is. Paul, we've got only with the 10 o'clock. So you got any final questions? I know we've sped through this pretty quickly.
Yeah, maybe we could just ask everybody for just one last sort of message and why they should think sustainable holidays or sustainable accommodation. Sylvia, what's your sort of motto when you speak to potential clients why they should look for your kind of destination and products?
That's a hard one. I would say the result is that 80% of the customers return within 2 years. So when I make tours, they are totally sustainable. So I think as a tour operator, if you make tours and people stay at 4 or 5 different spots and only one is sustainable, they will forget about it. But if they have a whole sustainable experience, they can compare it to their day-to-day life and they will see the difference and be more aware of it, and will maybe book another sustainable holiday the year after.
Brilliant. And the fact that they're coming back for more must mean that there is a complete, a feeling of I've found the right holiday for me. Sustainability is the way I'm going, and I'm sure there's a lot of customers and travelers that are looking for that. Rolf, any last message on your side to this question of sustainability in holidays?
Well, I think it's also sustainability in the way that you create and take care of your relationships when you sit around the fire pit and you have different sort of dialogues and conversations there. So I think also that's a different part where to have the experience with Vilepus, for example, is not only about sleeping under the stars in a glass igloo, it's also about actually nourishing the relationships that you do have with yourself, but also with others.
And I think, we're all living very stressful lives. Everybody, work is tough. Living conditions these days are very tough. We look at the news and we need to get away from the news that we see on a daily basis. And I guess going on a sustainable holiday, staying in products like yourselves. Sam, is that something that you transmit to your guests about, even though you're in a city, you're doing something right and you're having a sustainable experience?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, all the panelists here, they have quite sort of this unique experience products or sort of travel agents, but we're more of a classic hotel. And I was thinking about the question that Andy said, are travelers really willing to pay extra for sustainable travel? Maybe in some cases, no. But I think from Comfort Zone perspective, which is a budget brand to begin with, we can still offer competitive rates while also offering a sustainable experience. So I think when our guest chooses and sees 2 properties that have similar qualities, but then they can make the sustainable choice for the same price, I think that can make the difference. So I think it's the hotel's challenge to sort of offer that sustainability, but also stay within reasonable prices of the market.
Great point. Eva, last word for you, last couple of words for you. Obviously opening in a couple of years, something very special. Who are you after?
Well, we'd like to think of ourselves at least to position as a disruptors, and really more about challenge the industries to start thinking that way, and find the minds, kind of like-minded people, developers, etc., who are willing to go into that direction, because it's inevitable. That's the way we should go. And I agree with Sam. Doesn't need to be sustainability means more expensive. It means just a better way of doing things and looking at it into a way, especially nowadays when everything is expensive regardless. So it's actually doesn't make any difference. It just look at the benefits of what you can do by that. And the travelers, it's really about getting people into their right mindset of personal wellness, which by itself becomes sustainable for the planet down the line. And it's really education is key, and experience is a key for anyone to be better. in our world, at least.
Thank you, but I think all of you have made us think a lot today. Just listening to you guys talk so passionately about your products is making us all think this is the way forward, and I hope our audience feels the same. Andy, over to you for the final words.
Well, no final word apart from thank everybody. I mean, it's been very inspirational, and just to hear everybody, great examples of rather unique accommodation possibilities, and it's an inspiration for everybody around the world. So our thanks really to Sam, to Rolf, to Sylvia, to Ivalo. Really, we're very, very, very honoured to have you here this morning. And if anyone has any questions, just drop us a note and we'll try our best to answer. This webinar has been recorded. It will be on our website later, and it will also be on the ETOA website as well. Thanks to Paul, and thanks to our other Paul, who is a tour behind the scenes. Thank you for everybody, and have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.